Hi everybody, welcome to the Q&A for week 4 with Kerrie, Otto, Grancy, Marie, Louise from Evolve Yourself Institute. We're going to dive right in and just do a follow-up on yesterday's 1-hour session where we're really diving into the ABC method, awareness, breath, choice. I remember that correctly. Ladies, I think the session was amazing. As I said yesterday, thank you so much for delivering that. I'll invite some people to just type in their questions that they may have. But while we're waiting for that, was there anything that you wanted to add to extend on yesterday?
I'm just thinking maybe it could be around just identifying times or scenarios where you can practice or awareness around stresses, possibly for when an environment. So, I mean, Marie was really thorough. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I don't know, unless anyone else has clear questions. Do you have anything, Marie, that you think we could elaborate on in terms of
not necessarily elaborate, but maybe just allow for kind of scenarios that these types of scenes or where the environment has triggered us, and recognizing more and more within our own little bubble as to where that poke and when that poke arrives, and just being curious about investigating that. Because they happen a lot in more deeper awareness with our internal understanding. That poke happens way before we recognize it often. And it's really where the curious mind invigorates in a system, is where we start becoming incredibly curious about catching the poke when it even enters the field of consciousness. And that's an amazing space to be walking a pathway through. And I think inviting yourself to be curious about that awareness, because the poke, on a very physical level, it might be that you spat the dummy over something small. But there are deeper places for all of us to go to catch it way before it begins, so that we can be more in our fluidity of our own expression rather than the dis-ease that kind of manifests in the body mind. So I think
Simone just typed in a question, and maybe we get you on, Simone, but she wrote, the choice part is the bit I wasn't clear about implementing. Did you want to jump on, Simone, and talk about a specific scenario? Otherwise,
I think it was probably, and I'll admit, I was probably struggling to be 100% present yesterday. So that will be part of it. And I sort of felt that, yes, I can see where I'm triggered in different situations. And I'm not sure if it was Sarah, but the comment was made yesterday about sort of struggling with the parent versus the professional kind of. And I certainly see I walk into a room and, that professional, and you feel like you have a different persona and you have a little shield. And so you kind of, deal with, I guess, those triggers you can deflect them. I find the personal ones, and it was just interesting, probably only 20 minutes before I'd logged on, my 18-year-old and I can trigger each other. We're very similar. And she'd just, and for me, it's often walk away, and she triggered me yesterday, and it was just like, oh my God, she's driving me crazy. But equally, she probably felt the same about me. So I think it's, especially those ones that are really, obviously that's the personalism. I just wasn't following. And like I said, I probably wasn't 100% present, but then where's the choice part? I get, okay, I'm going to be triggered, or I've been triggered here, I need to breathe, and then I got lost.
So once the breath invokes in the system, because generally speaking, when you're dancing with your daughter, and that's a case scenario we can draw upon, and I hope that's okay with you, Simone, if we do that. So there's a certain dance that you both play out and you've kind of formed, and this is where the cha-cha comes involved, yeah? It's a certain rhythm that you guys are dancing together, and you know this, it's a stereotypical kind of, you've got a certain thing, and every dance is different. So every two people have a different dance. And the energy from them has created the energy in you, and then that's its norm. So it walks to a rhythm of this. Now, as soon as you recognize that you are walking to that rhythm, and it can come in a thought before you even get there, yeah, because you know that, oh, my daughter's going to be like this today, or she's just had this, and I know, and I've already painted the scene, but the energy of you two are pulling each other together. Mm-hmm. And that norm sits in its norm. And as soon as you deregulate that norm where you've taken a breath, okay, you are changing the state of your system, which changes the state of the energy of that pull, because that's like a magnetic pull. It's a magnetic frequency that just constantly dances to that rhythm. But as soon as we change, we offer the space of the physical, the spaciousness. We are now no longer operating in the reflex that we've seen 1,000 times before. Okay, so that reflex of seeing 1,000 times before, where you do it, that's your norm. You might leave the room and go, I have to run, or I have to divert, or I have to avoid, or I have to yell. That's my fight or flight, or my avoidance, or my freezing. I shut down. Maybe your daughter, I'm not sure what dance you two have, but there's a tension there, but that tension is your normal. Now, my bigger question is, does that dance serve your whole wellness and your daughter's whole well-being?
No.
Okay, no. So perfect. That's the perfect question. Yeah, you go, okay, does this serve? So it doesn't serve. So as soon as I change the ecosystem of my inside, because I cannot change this, I cannot change the other, I start shifting the shape of my own ecosystem. And that is because I'm choosing harmony within it, and I'm choosing to regulate inside it. Before, I'm just operating on reflex. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm opening a different space in this system, and now I'm no longer shut down my higher brain functioning, because it deregulates. As soon as you're on autopilot, you're on deregulation, especially with momentum of energy of emotion. So emotion is jam-packed with history.
Yeah.
So here we have the space. As soon as that, okay, well, I'm coming. Now, you might not be able to deregulate that momentum immediately. That's why practicing with certain practices and processes enables that to come alive in the practice. Okay. So now I deregulate it. Well, then I have the power to choose. If it's deregulated, I am sitting in my whole sense of awareness, not yesterday's patterns. I'm sitting in all awareness on how I handle this. Because if I can regulate my state, the state of environment deregulates, because this will become a different dance, because she can't dance the same way when this energy is the same, not the same. It just doesn't work that way. It's when this energy changes in here, this energy has to change. And it might be a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning.
So that's why. So, and I mean, we don't always have that same dance. No. We have different dances.
Yeah, of course.
If she's going to, it's me. And what you just said makes sense, because in the situation where I throw my hands in the air and I say to my husband, I'm absolutely going to lose it here, I've got to walk away. Mm-hmm. He comes in and he can calm the situation down and can change her focus. And this goes back, and like I said, I think we're very similar, to when she was 3, and my husband would say, how do you fight with a 3-year-old?
Yes. And they are the amazing thing is, our children and our parents are our greatest of teachers to navigate a more liberated, free life. And so when we allow that access, so she becomes like a tool or an unlocking key to your world. And this is the great gift. I think I've got it in a chapter in my book. I think it might be chapter 9 or whatever. And it's when you use the world as your greatest of teachers. Okay, so, and your world as a mirror. So you're using the world as your mirror, as your greatest of teachers. When you access the teacher in every place you look, you will grow exponentially, catapult into really the expression that you were born to be, rather than those tendencies that keep us stuck in this space. And so that's very exciting. So where the choice rises is when you are starting to change your biochemistry.
So that then ultimately will help her, so that when she gets stressed, she starts to learn those different dances too, to have with different people.
Well done, Simone.
Subconsciously.
Absolutely self-consciously, because everything around you is mirroring your state, not your trait. Primarily, it's your state. So if in the world of experiencing, modifying and shifting the state of your coherence, it is inevitable that the environment in the field in which you dance will change too. Okay, that because it is a biofeedback that we're receiving and giving in every millisecond. There's trillions of bits of information being exchanged, way beyond the mind's capacity to interpret. But the awareness on a deeper level is that what evokes and what is seen is that I trust that I can't change my daughter, or I can't change the environment, but I know that this ability is changing that world, which is really crazy. But you're actually changing the patterns, and you're changing the radio station in which you tune into. So this radio station is 98.5. You know it, the body knows it. And the only way to change that radio station, you've got to know where the dial is. And the dial sits in your central nervous system to start accessing deeper states of who you are, rather than that dance of 95.5 or whatever it is.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So hopefully, moving into choice is something that you're excited about.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool is, when you see it, particularly in your young ones, like my toddler, when since I've become more aware of my state influencing his, and that being a mirror, every time he gets a little bit antsy now, I immediately check myself and just calm myself down. It happens really quickly. Once you've got that awareness practice in place, you can quickly catch yourself and then switch it around really fast, as opposed to tantrums lasting ages or fights, because you can fight with a 3-year-old. They don't last as long, because you just suddenly gone, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. I'll just need to calm myself, and straight away he's just a different human, it seems.
Yeah. No, it's very powerful. It's a powerful practice of renegotiating with yourself, actually. And so that renegotiation just changes the dance in which you play. But it is a bit challenging in a downward spiral. Like in the momentum of downward spiral, it can be a bit challenging. But recognizing that momentum, once it's surpassed, you have the availability, and that's where the pillar of reflection and projection comes into play. And that's actually, okay, well, I can catch myself earlier next time. Because then I can and it's catching yourself from a distance, not out of judgment or criticism. And I think really want to highlight that it's we're investigating ourselves to open up doorways to be, more fulfilled and more in love and more in joy, more in harmony and more in coherence with our best possible version of ourselves. And that's not good or bad, ugly or pretty. It's it's our truest of nature really being able to shine brightly. And I think that's the judge and the critic, it's on way too much. And attention or giving something awareness isn't to be the critic or the judge any longer. It's actually just out of that deep state of compassion of yourself and those things. Yeah.
I had a really interesting situation a few weeks ago now, with my baby daddy, in that we've had a very, very turbulent relationship even when we were together. But I'd instigated a number of different mediations, and I was instigated another one. I said, right, this is the last time I'm trying mediation. After that, I completely give up. It didn't go great. I was like, doing my breathing practices beforehand, going, right, stay calm, stay calm. I got so frustrated, I ended up walking out of the room and just calling it quits. And I thought I was going to beat myself up for reacting. But when I got out into my car, I felt this overwhelming sense of joy because I'd made that choice that that was going to be the last time I tried. So at that point, I sort of relinquished all me trying to control the situation and make it better. And by doing that, I realized I was just so joyful. And remarkably, the relationship, even though it was theoretically a disaster and failure of me walking out in a tantrum, we haven't had a single crossword with each other since, and it's been really harmonious. And it's just funny how making that decision to, I'm not going to try anymore, has released it. I just thought I'd share that for your input around, I know it's slightly off track what we were talking about, but it's just that sort of dance. I recognize the dance that he and I did. He'd immediately make my skin prickle and all this resentment of things unsaid. And I think maybe it was also the platform that I was able to say some of the things that I had been building up. But that dance, it's when you're in the moment, it's so hard to catch yourself, like you're saying. But I also learned that it's okay not to beat yourself up if you don't meet your own expectations of how you think you should react, because there was a blessing in that for me.
Yeah. Oh, look, the memory and the ability of the higher brain functioning has the ability to remember, but we get dictated by our remembering. And the same with imagination. It has the ability to imagine, but we get dictated by that imagination. And so it's really understanding the capacity of the tool itself. And the tool itself is really good at remembering, and it's really good at projecting into the future. But it's not the master. And that's the great thing about that whole process, is that if you can let go of yesterday, you are free. And guilt is one of the darkest and darkest energies, but it also, in awareness, can be a tool that you can use if you're processing stuff in your body. But it's not worthy going down that for sure. That's great. Good on you. So the ABC is really about bringing that awareness alive, and then the power of the breath to access and gain access to choice. It offers space around any type of reactivity which is held in the body. And it allows a more conscious human to rise in the sleeve, which then would enable conscious leaders, consciousness when you're walking through your work life, your family life, your relationship life. And that is a powerful tool to buy into, I think.
Can I ask a question? Because a theme that's popped up in a couple of the other sessions is the topic of boundaries. How do boundaries come into play, particularly in that choices area? Because I think if you're in this dance with people, sometimes would you say boundaries can be an important part of what you choose and implement?
Yeah, it's a boundary. It's a funny thing. At the core nature of our being, we're boundless, and that is the interesting dance that we have in our mind, that we need to put boundaries up. But for someone's psychological and emotional and mental well-being, it is maybe something that they haven't done in their life. And so for a hypersensitive person can walk into the room and their energies will be receiving the information from all of the other humans in the room, okay? And that information will be internalized, and that person will interpret individually to themselves. So when I consciously, if I'm a person who's, and Marie Louise has been such, so, and in the experience of knowing not boundaries, that is not mine to own. That is not mine to own. The energies of others is not mine to own. In awareness, it is known, but not in unconscious or subconscious reactivity. And so that subconscious reactivity may be in the human development of that individuated person. So it's not a universal, a universal medicine, like it's like, okay, a boundary is sometimes good for the person. But if you're a person who's always putting up boundaries, well, you're just going to build a wall that's going to build a castle that you're only going to be in. But the great thing about being boundless is that you have freedom, and that's gaining access to more of your internal being, and that is freedom no matter what the world is throwing at you. And so that has a certain sense of boundary, but it isn't a boundary of a wall. But sometimes it is a requirement to put up a decision for your own health and well-being, where you say it's a relationship that isn't serving you. Say you've recognized that this particular relationship energetically is not serving you, and you say, I will be able, and you've always said yes to that person, you've always said yes, and then all of a sudden, actually my pattern is, my dance, coming back to the dance, is always saying yes to that person. Now, okay, well, I'm just going to repeat more of the same shit that I did yesterday if I keep on doing it. So my boundary then is to say, oh no, and someone might perceive that as a boundary, but it's actually a shift in the dance. Okay. And ideally in a world of harmony is that there is no fixed rule for anything, because the dynamic nature of existence is incredibly dynamic and it changes all the time. So what might work, if you practice your state of presence in the dance, you will know whether you say no or you say yes. And that will be perfect for that dance. But if I go in the scene and I have to prepare myself to say no, well, I am already preconceiving the scenario of the dance. And I'm not there to be actually make that resolution in that moment, because sometimes you might say yes and sometimes you might say no. So is it a good thing to design boundaries? Yeah, it is. If there's a certain capacity where you have your reflex is to say yes, your reflex is to do things that don't serve your system. Like a person, we work a lot with the people in the service sector. And so a service mindset, they might be forever giving to other people. So forever giving to other people and have no idea how to give to themselves. So then their next point of call is to bring the awareness that, okay, I actually need to start saying no to say yes. Or, and then someone might perceive that as a boundary. But I like to move away from the boundary because it builds more walls. But it's not to say that a boundary, it's just perceived an understanding. But in this case, sometimes, yes, boundaries is the power of choice, in answer to a long-winded question. So good. Go down a rabbit hole.
Look, I think that's, the fluidity of the choice is not always going to be the same choice every time. And being able to discern what it needs to be in that moment, because like you say, if you go in with a fixed idea of what your choice should be in that conversation or in that moment, you're not open to allowing it to be what it needs to be. And because sometimes it might be, you think it needs to be this and it actually needs to be another way for some kind of, confrontation isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it can bring to light a lot of truth that you didn't even know was there. And I think some people try and avoid confrontation, but I think it's how we do everything that sets it, how you do boundaries, how you do this, how you do anything, how you serve, how you receive, all of those sorts of things. If we set too many rules around it, what it is for you isn't going to be that for me. Including what words mean. The word boundary to you might mean different things to what it means for me, because I might have a different relationship with boundaries. Over the years, I've had to practice having higher boundaries because I've had to learn to love myself and respect myself. So my boundaries actually are about self-love, not building up walls. It's actually the opposite. So yeah, it's interesting. Different words have different meanings to different people.
For
and
sure.
how they are in action also is different.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely that's the awareness where the breath allows that spaciousness to rise in that presence rather than in the momentum of what we've done yesterday and what we've done today. And it just allows that space to rise, whatever that might be. And the choice then is whatever that is for you. And that is it could just be sitting in the feeling. It could be speaking. It could be, it could be expressing something you haven't expressed before.
And then storming out of the room.
Yeah.
I can laugh at myself. Hey, I own it. Hey, I've got my Spanish blood in me. No.
Nothing wrong with passion.
But look, it worked for me at that moment. And had I sat, actually, that's a really good example of had I stayed stuck in that, well, I'm going to sit through and I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to bite my tongue, it actually wouldn't have had the outcome that it did because I've been shutting up and putting up for all that time. So it was good that I gave into my Spanish passion.
That's the gift of, I think that definitely the gift of learning to be that self-love and that self-compassionate and person who understands the imperfection and is not in the delusion of perfection really does allow for us to be more accepting of our actions, even if they were in reactivity. And that's the beautiful thing about growth and awakening to your truth and all of those beautiful gifts that rise in the experience of being curious. And that's very cool stuff.
And I think in the journey of personal development, people can feel a lot of guilt if it's misplaced because they beat themselves up thinking, I should have done better, I know better, I do all this. And that sort of, that not just laughing at yourself like I do. It's like, yeah, well, I'm learning. I'm a work in progress, but I'm also perfect at the same time. So, it worked out the way it needed to. But we're at time. So unless you guys had some more questions of the people who've shown up, we might wrap it up. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know I tried to wrap it up yesterday, a day early, but we'll see you girls in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure you'll jump onto some of the other sessions, but thank you so much for joining us on this journey and everything that you've provided everybody.
Thanks, team. It's a real gift. Yeah.
Thanks, Letitia.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next week for Susan and talking about family dynamics in business. So hope to see you guys there.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Wow.
See you later.